What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. It is the full season of fall right now. A lot of the leaves are changing, some of them are starting to fall. And today we're on the Supermoto and we're gonna go for a little ride. Today is going to be a little bit of a different kind of video. Today I really wanted to talk about mainly just what to expect when buying a Supermoto and riding a Supermoto consistently, similar to mine. So mine is a 2007 CRF 450X, converted to a Supermoto, street legal, whole nine, and so far I've had it for a little over a year. I think about a year and a month. And I love this thing. It is so much fun. It's got plenty of torque, plenty of power. It feels awesome. And a lot of times too, it's also not that fast. It's fun without being insanely fast, which I really like. I think it's awesome for the roads that I typically ride on. Today, I decided to just ride some back roads and see where they take me. I've had this Supermoto for about a year and a month. I only put a couple hundred miles on it last year when I did get it, because I got it in September of 2021. And at the time, the guy had it street legal already when I bought it. It came from New Jersey. He had a street legal title already. Whoa, that lake looks sweet. So he said originally that he went to the dealer, and in New Jersey, for a lot of the trails to ride on, he needed insurance on it, and the only way that insurance companies would insure it was if it was classified as a motorcycle. So somehow he got the dealer, when he bought it brand new, to register this bike as a motorcycle. So on the title, it was never an off-road vehicle, it was always a motorcycle. Oh, this is awesome. I love riding through sections like this where the trees already have some leaves that fell, and most of them have already changed color. So anyway, like I was saying, the bike was already technically street legal when I bought it. So when I transferred it into PA, I just registered it, as a motorcycle, because that's what it was on the title. And that was pretty much it. So anyway, now at this point in time, I've more than doubled the miles that have been on this bike. And I've had a lot of seat time on it. So let's go with the things that I like about it first. First of all, it feels very raw. There's a lot of road input that you give the bike. You feel a lot of output given back to you by the bike, by the road. It's very raw. It feels very unrestricted. It's an awesome bike to take turns, to really lean it, and you just don't get the same, you don't get the same feeling on many other bikes that have a completely upright seating position as opposed to, like, let's say a sport bike or a naked bike. You know, you can lean those very far too. You're sitting a little lower, a little more hunched over. This is just completely straight up. And that is one thing I really like about it. It also has it has plenty of power for whatever you want to do, as long as it's not the highway. It's got a lot of torque. It's very snappy, and it really makes it feel like you can move pretty quick. If you'll notice in that last sentence, I did say except the highway. It's not great on the highway. I have mine geared a little bit different to give me a little bit more top end out of it, and that has helped a little bit, but you know, on the highway it's still not great. I wouldn't take it on the highway for extended periods of time. I've only ever taken this on the highway twice, I think, and it was only for about 10 to 15 miles. It does fine. You can, you know, cruise at 65, but you're pretty high up in the RPMs. It will start to heat up a little bit. If you're casually riding, you know, riding around, it stays very cool for the most part. But if you're stopped, it heats up really quick, and if you're on the highway, it heats up really quick, because you're so high in the RPMs of fifth gear, you know, cruising at like 75 or so. But if you're cruising at like 55, 60, that's fine. Normally it's fine. You're not that high up in fifth gear. It's also a very interesting bike to drive on the roads in general. You know, your fifth gear, you can do, you know, 40 miles an hour, but you can also go, I've gotten mine up to 90 before I hit the rev limiter in fifth gear. That was done on a closed course, of course. So like right now we're cruising at 40, I'm in fifth gear. You can just power right out of it, which is crazy. Most of the time you just don't feel like you have to shift that much, but overall it is a lot of fun. I'm going to segue that into what I briefly mentioned in that last sentence about it heating up when you're stopped. So one thing about mine in particular, I know that Trail Tech and maybe a couple other companies make some fans that you can put on the radiators, because this bike is liquid cooled, but it does not have fans on the radiators. So in order to keep the airflow moving and to really keep it cool, you got to be moving. So I have noticed in days where it's really hot that a lot of times if you're at stoplights and stuff, like say on a close to 100-degree day, the bike will climb in temperature very fast. Mine is never overheated on me, but whenever I feel like it gets a little warm, I actually tend to shut it off at stoplights. If I know I'm going to be sitting there a while, just because I don't want to damage the motor. I don't know if I'm being a little too cautious with that or like overprotective, but that's just me. That's just how I like to ride it. I really don't want anything to happen to this thing. I love this bike. Man, look at all these fall colors in this valley. I believe we're headed towards the Delaware River right now, so we should be able to get some pretty nice views of the fall colors as the trees line both sides of the Delaware River. It's almost in a valley, sort of, I guess you would say. So these mountains on the outsides are going to have some pretty sweet colors. I'm hoping that the weather stays kind of like this for a little bit longer, so I can go to some cool places. And the views of those mountains over there, and even just going through these trees, is phenomenal. Oh, there's a little bar. There's the river, the Delaware River. Anyway, some more things that I like and dislike about this bike. One of my main complaints, I would say, is that if you're going on a long ride, like over, let's say, 100 miles or so, you are going to be so sore. It becomes very hard to sit down. You have to stand up a lot just to get some relief, because the seat is very, very uncomfortable. I definitely want to look into getting a seat concept seat or something like that, because it is just almost unbearable at times. It can get pretty rough. Another nice part about this bike, well, at least nice in my opinion, is that you don't really see a lot of them out there. I really like bikes that are different. Mine, by the graphics and stuff like that, is pretty much all original in terms of the looks and how it really came from the factory. You don't really see a lot that are this old out there on the streets running. Every once in a while I run into Supermotos. They're not very big in the areas that I ride usually, but yeah, when I do see them, it's usually something a little more common, like a KTM or a Husqvarna or something. But the Hondas, sometimes some of the newer Hondas, like the RLs, 450 300s, 300Ls I mean. But sorry, I'm just so mesmerized by this view. So another thing that I really like about riding the Supermoto is that it handles phenomenal. With the smaller wheels and the street tires on it, well, smaller than stock, it handles like it's on rails. You can really swerve around things really quick. It is very nice to ride around this part of PA as well. Wow, look at that view. You can really see the mountains. Let's keep following the river. You can really swerve around things when you need to, and riding in this part of Pennsylvania specifically, there's a lot of potholes. So having a bike like this that has a lot of suspension travel is really nice. You don't really have to worry about hitting too many bumps. Some other pluses to riding a Supermoto, even like this, that is jetted and has an exhaust. It still gets great gas mileage. I mean, it gets close to 50 miles to the gallon no matter how I ride it, and I cannot complain about that at all. But on the flip side with gas is it barely holds any. The tank is like roughly 2 gallons. I think it might be slightly less actually, or maybe it's slightly more. I don't remember specifically, but normally about every 100 miles you're looking for a gas station, which is a little bit annoying, especially when you ride with people that can go a lot further than that. But it's overall not too bad. I don't really mind it that much, honestly. I think the joy of riding this bike really outweighs that factor to me. Another thing with this bike specifically, I mean, I don't know if everybody does it or if it's just me, but I tend to only run premium, either 93 with ethanol or 90 non-ethanol is normally the highest we can get around here. And I tend to run either one of those, whichever the gas station has personally. I like to run higher octane. I think it starts a lot easier and just generally runs better, especially if I don't ride as much. The ethanol doesn't gum up the carburetor, because this is a carbureted bike. Man, imagine having this house just right on the river like that. God, that's a hell of a view. Another thing that I think is really interesting with a bike like this that's converted to a Supermoto is that depending on what size chain you get, you're going to have to run a very small spacer in between your sprocket and your case. If you get a chain, I think it's like a 520 chain, and you get like an X-ring or an O-ring chain, you're going to have to run a spacer. I did not know this initially, and the chain that I got was an X-ring chain, and it did wear like a really thin groove in the side of my case, which really scared me. I didn't know at the time that that was a possibility or that that was a thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't believe that it will wear all the way through. I think it just wears a little groove so that way it has enough room, because it's not really that much wider than a normal chain that's not an X-ring or an O-ring. But keep in mind that if you have a bike that you're running as a Supermoto, or even I guess just a regular 450, and you decide to run an X-ring or O-ring chain, meaning like an older bike like this, at least, I don't know about the newer bikes, you have to run that spacer in between the front sprocket and the case. Otherwise you'll have a nice little groove in your case. But overall, this thing is ran absolutely perfect. I've never had any other issues besides that that front sprocket bolt loosening up on me once while I'm riding. Nothing else has really happened in let's see, how many miles have I ridden this thing? Like 1,700 miles or so. Nothing is really nothing else has really happened. No engine issues, no running issues, nothing. Other than that, it's been absolutely perfect. And I absolutely love this bike. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. Just riding it is such a different feeling.